देखो when two substances that mix together are in different state or different phase, like if you add salt into water, then salt is your solid and water is your liquid. तो solid और liquid जब आपस में mix होंगे तो वो non homogeneous या फिर heterogeneous mixture कहलाता है. इसी तरह अगर आप शुगर वाटर में डालोगे तो शुगर सॉलिड है, वाटर लिक्विड है, तो वो भी नॉन होमोजेनियस या हेटेरोजेनियस मिक्सचर कहलाता है. लेकिन अगर आप लेट से रूह अफ़ज़ा वाटर में डालोगे तो रूह अफ़ज़ा भी लिक्विड है, वाटर भी लिक्विड है, तो ऐसा मिक्सचर फिर होमोजेनियस मिक्सचर कहलाता है, क्योंकि दोनों मिक्स करने वाली स्टेट जो है वो सेम है. क्लियर है?
ओके सर, ठीक है. जी सर, थैंक यू.
Sir,
जी.
sir, can we say that like homogeneous mixtures they are visible and heterogeneous mixtures and not heterogeneous mixtures they are visible and homogeneous mixtures they are not visible?
No, both homogeneous and heterogeneous mixture both are visible, or both can be invisible as well. Like air is a mixture of gases, so air is a homogeneous mixture. ठीक है, एयर में there is oxygen, there is nitrogen, there is carbon dioxide, but you cannot see the molecules of air ना. एयर तो दिखती नहीं है ना, लेकिन वो homogeneous mixture है, you cannot see it. However, on the other hand, like mixture of रूह अफ़ज़ा and water is also a homogeneous mixture, you can see it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, तो ऐसा कुछ है नहीं वैसे. चलें आगे बढ़े, आज की क्लास स्टार्ट करें फिर. अच्छा, आज ना वी हैव टू स्टडी फॉर्मूला मेकिंग ऑफ आयनिक कंपाउंड. तो फॉर्मूला मेकिंग बेसिकली क्या होती है, देखो आपका आयनिक कंपाउंड्स अभी हमने पढ़ा नहीं है, राइट? आयनिक कंपाउंड्स अभी हम पढ़ेंगे ना, लेकिन आयनिक कंपाउंड बेसिकली क्या होते हैं, when two ions like one positively charged ion, one negatively charged ion, they join together, or we say that they are bonded together, they form an ionic compound. इसमें एक कैटाइन होता है हमारे पास जो कि पॉजिटिवली चार्ज आयन होता है, और एक एनाइन होता है हमारे पास जो कि नेगेटिवली चार्ज आयन होता है. They are attracted to each other because they are unlike charges and they form a compound. For example, if we have sodium ion from group 1 and chloride ion from group 7, they combine together due to the force of attraction between them, because one is positively charged, the other is negatively charged, and they form a compound known as sodium chloride. तो ये किस तरह से बनता है, क्यों बनता है, वो तो हम आयनिक अभी आगे इसके बाद केमिकल बॉन्डिंग पढ़ेंगे तो उसमें समझ आएगा. लेकिन हम वो चैप्टर बॉन्डिंग स्टार्ट करने से पहले ना आयनिक कंपाउंड की फॉर्मूला मेकिंग कैसे होती है वो पढ़ना चाह रहे हैं. जैसे जब कोई रिएक्शन होता है लाइक सोडियम एंड क्लोरीन, इट रिएक्ट्स टुगेदर, इट फॉर्म सोडियम क्लोराइड. अब इसमें रिएक्टेंट साइड पे सोडियम की क्वांटिटी 1 लिखी हुई है, यहाँ पे क्लोरीन 2 लिखे हुए हैं. हाउ कम दिस फॉर्मूला इज Na1Cl1? And let's say for example if we have magnesium and oxygen reacting together, they form magnesium oxide. तो मैग्नीशियम भी 1 है, ऑक्सीजन भी 1 है, लेफ्ट हैंड साइड पे ऑक्सीजन 2 है. तो ये जो फॉर्मूला हमारे पास आ रहा है आयनिक कंपाउंड का, ये कैसे आ रहा है, हम एक्चुअली ना ये समझना चाह रहे हैं. पहले हम ना फॉर्मूला मेकिंग सीखेंगे आयनिक कंपाउंड्स की, उसके बाद फिर हम आयनिक कंपाउंड्स को पढ़ेंगे. आवाज किसी के पास नहीं आ रही है? शावेज
नहीं
रिकॉर्डिंग
सर, मुझे तो आ रही है सर.
Yes, sir.
रामी.
You're audible.
Yes, sir, you are audible.
रामीन बेटा आप बताओ, आवाज आ गई आपके पास? जब आ गई चल. अच्छा, अब देखो हमने ना एक चीज ये पढ़ी थी ये
So
जितने भी
one what I did was that मेरे से ना last month में I had 6 days left for some reason कि मैंने बाकी पूरा महीना ज़ाया किया था लंदन में बैठ के. In those 6 days I did not study because I was stressing out मैं करूँगी कैसे. So basically for the paper one I studied like 2 days ago. लेकिन I covered almost everything for paper one at least. ये तो हो गया था लेकिन जब मैं अपने आंसर में गई थी I did not write enough references from the Quran or the Hadith. तो I was stressed out about that कि
मीना
मेरा जो एक थी कॉन्क्वेस्ट और मक्का वाला वो
मीना
इतना बुरा आंसर गया था लेकिन Astaghfirullah. Anyway, I could have done way better in Islamiyat.
you guys
लेकिन
want
Allah मानेगा भाई. If I get lower than a B, I am not joking.
मीना
I'm gonna be.
बच्चे what are you doing?
We're talking about Islam, yeah.
Talking about Islamiyat, but to whom you are talking to right now? You are in my class. Meena, I'm asking you something. Okay, nice. मुझे क्या अब आप लोगों के कैमरा खुलवा के क्लास लेनी पड़ेगी लग
Sir,
रहा
I'm
है.
really sorry. I was trying to comfort my friend, telling her that she was not going to fail alone.
Whom you were talking to? You're talking on a phone?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wait, from अच्छा चलो खैर बाद में बात करते हैं इस बारे में. Anyways, अच्छा देखो, we know all the elements from group 1 they loses one electron to form a charge of +1 because they have one valence electrons in their outermost shell, and all the elements from group 2 they loses 2 electrons because they have 2 valence electrons or 2 electrons in their outermost shell. In order to achieve stability they loses their 2 electrons. All the elements from group 3 we know they loses 3 electrons to get a charge of +3. All the elements between group 2 and group 3 we call them transition metals, right? These are also metals and they also loses electron in order to achieve stability. Like we have iron as a transition metal. Iron in some compounds it loses 2 electrons to form a charge of 2 positive. Iron in some compounds it loses 3 electrons to form a charge of 3 positive. So how would we know when iron is making a charge of 2 positive and when iron is making a charge of 3 positive? We actually write it like this: iron 2 and iron 3, right? Similarly, copper is another transition metal. If they have written copper 1, it means copper is making a charge of +1. If they have written copper 2, it means copper is making a charge of 2 positive by losing 2 electrons. Chromium is another transition metal. If they have written chromium 6 or if they have written chromium 3, in number Roman में लिखे हुए, right? Chromium 6 is Cr6 positive and chromium 3 is Cr3 positive. Whenever they have written any number in Roman with any element, it will always form a positive charge. ये कभी negative तो होगा नहीं. If you are thinking it chromium 3 is written, is it 3 positive or 3 negative? It will always be a positive charge. ये होता ही metals के लिए. Non metals के साथ anion के साथ या negatively charged ion के साथ हम रोमन में ऐसा कोई नंबर लिखते ही नहीं. ठीक है, अच्छा, coming towards group 4, we know that group 4 do not lose or gain electron.
Excuse
This
me,
is a new
sir.
chapter. रामीन बेटा, आपका भी आवाज आ रही है या नहीं आ रही है? आज क्यों प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है? कोई कुछ पूछ रहा था?
Yes, sir. Sir, I don't understand. Can you please explain
Then which
again?
part? Which part?
Sir, I also don't
The
This transition metal one?
yes.
Sir,
Okay.
about the group.
Better?
I am not understand. Sir, can you explain it again?
Okay, okay. No problem. Do you guys have product table in front of you right now? Let me open it for you. Ramin, can you hear us? अच्छा, ये प्रोडक्ट टेबल नजर आ रहा है सबको?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So actually what we discussed before, that all the elements from group 1, in order to achieve stability, they always loses one electron. Lithium has an electronic configuration of 2,1. Sodium has an electronic configuration of 2,8,1. Potassium has an electronic configuration of 2,8,8,1. In order to achieve stability, potassium will lose its one valence electron, sodium will also lose its one valence electron, and lithium will all lose its one valence electron. Whenever any atom loses one electron, it gets a charge of +1. याद आया? Hassan and कौन पूछ रहा था? Ariba, I think you were asking me.
No, sir. It was me.
अबिया, ये बात
No,
याद आ
sir.
गई?
Hiba.
हिबा, sorry. हिबा, ये बात याद आ गई आपको, that all the atoms from group 1, they always loses one electron to achieve stability, and they get a charge of +1.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, all the elements from group 2, they loses 2 electrons because they have 2 valence electrons. In outermost shell, they have 2 electrons. In order to achieve stability, they loses their 2 valence electrons from their outer shell, and what charge they will get? +2. Similarly, group 3 elements, they have 3 valence electrons. So in order to achieve stability, they loses their 3 electrons from their valence shell. And when an atom loses 3 electrons, it gets a charge of 3 positive, because electrons are negative. When negative particle loses an atom, they get a charge of positive. Negative charge निकलेगा तो पीछे positive रह जाएगा. Yes, this is also the identification of metal, that metal always loses an electron. So all the elements from group 1 till group 3, they all are metals, and they always loses electron to achieve stability. And whenever any atom loses electron or gains an electron, it is actually undergoing a chemical reaction. So in other words, you can also say that all the elements from group 1 till group 3, in order to react, they always loses electron and forms a charge of positive. Positively charged ions are known as cations. So all the elements from group 1 till group 3, they always form cations by losing electron. Group 1 के elements, they lose 1 electron to get a charge of positive, and group 2 element, they loses 2 electron to get a charge of positive 2. Similarly, all the elements in between group 2 and group 3 are also metals, and they also lose electron and gets a positive charge in order to react. But इन पे charge की value क्या आएगी, that you cannot determine from their group number. For example, if you have cesium, cesium is from group 1, so we know that it will lose 1 electron. Radium is from group 2, so we know it will lose 2 electron and will get a charge of positive 2. Indium is from group 3, so we know it will lose 3 electron and will get a charge of positive 3. However, for iron, we are not sure whether it would lose 2 electrons or will it lose 2 electrons or 3 electrons. We are not sure about it. तो वो हमें बताएगा खुद से कि whether iron has lost 2 electrons or 3 electrons. अब वो किस तरह से बताएगा? He would write iron 2. ये जो नंबर लिखा हुआ है 2 in Roman, this shows that iron have lost 2 electrons and has formed a charge of 2 positive. लेकिन अगर ये लिखा हुआ है iron 3, it means iron has lost 3 electrons and forms a charge of 3 positive. Similarly, chromium is another transition metal. Chromium can also form a charge of +6. Chromium can also form a charge of +3. अब पूछो क्या पूछ रहे हो?
Sir, as you know that in every shell there are different numbers of electrons. Sir, how can you came to know about that? In first shell there are 2 electrons, in other 8, because every shell has different electron number.
You are talking about transition metals specifically,
Yes,
or all
sir.
the metals? Okay. For transition metals, if we go on finding about the number of valence electrons in iron, actually number of valence electron in iron is let me tell you, D1, D2, D3, D4, D5, D6, 6 in 3D. 3p is 6 and 6, 6, 12, 13, 14. So iron has actually 14 valence electrons, out of which it can lose, sometimes it can lose 3 electrons, sometimes it can lose 2 electrons. But in O level, we won't discuss that. तो हम ना इसको एज एक्सेप्शन पढ़ेंगे कि आयरन ऐसा कर सकता है. क्यों करता है आयरन ऐसा? हमने तो ये भी नहीं पढ़ा कि किसी एटम के आउटरमोस्ट शेल में 8 से ज्यादा इलेक्ट्रॉन्स हो सकते हैं. होते हैं, but as far as our O level or IG is concerned, in our course we are not supposed to make the electronic configuration of any element beyond atomic number 20. उसके आगे तो तरीका ही चेंज हो जाता है. हमें कैल्शियम तक बनाना है, उसके आगे हम बना ही नहीं सकते, उसके आगे तरीका ही चेंज है, वो हमारे सिलेबस का पार्ट ही नहीं. बट हमें ये चीज अभी सिर्फ एब्जॉर्ब करनी है कि आयरन ट्रांजिशन मेटल्स, दे कैन फॉर्म वेरिएबल चार्जेस. वेरिएबल मींस दे कैन फॉर्म चेंजिंग चार्जेस. Iron can form a charge of 3 positive as well as 2 positive. But if we talk about number of valence electrons in iron, we cannot actually determine it in O level or IG. मतलब इस ग्रेड में हम लोग इसको डिटरमाइन नहीं कर सकते.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
ठीक है,
Sir?
ये हमारी कोर्स की लिमिटेशन है. जी बच्चे.
Sir, what's the reason behind it that it is not like losing equal number of electrons?
बेटा रीजन जो ट्रांजिशन मेटल्स है ना बिटवीन ग्रुप 2 एंड ग्रुप 3, they behave somewhat different as compared to other metals. Of course we know the reason of it. Science have found the reason behind it, but right now in this grade we are not going to discuss it because this is way beyond your league abhi.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, but still if you are curious we can discuss it some other time. But अभी जो है ना हम लोग बहुत आगे चले जाएंगे कोर्स से अगर इन बातों में जाएंगे ना.
Sir,
Okay, but इसको सर्च जरूर करना. जी बोलो.
are transition metals like part of our syllabus? Like just the basic stuff?
Yes, the basics are part of a syllabus. They will ask you about the properties of transition metals because their properties are pretty different from the other metals of the periodic table. So we'll be learning the properties of transition metals and जो charges variable है ना इनके variable charges जैसे iron is making 2 positive and 3 positive. तो ये भी जो है आपका सिलेबस का पार्ट है तभी हमने पढ़ा. बट इसका रीजन जो है वो नहीं.
तो अगर फॉर एग्जांपल किसी केमिकल रिएक्शन में आयरन हो तो उसकी वो मतलब स्पेसिफाई करेंगे ना कि आयरन 2 है आयरन 3 है.
Yes, they will specify whether iron is 2 or iron is 3 for all the transition metals. Okay, in fact, we also discussed that there are 2 more metals in group 4, tin and lead. Even for tin and lead, they have to specify the charge because lead can make 2 types of charges, lead 1 and lead 2. When they have written lead 1, it means this is Pb positive, and when they have written lead 2, this means Pb2 positive. अब इसको ऐसे नहीं देखना कि lead and tin is from group 4, so they should be making a charge of positive 4. No, they won't make a charge of positive. अच्छा, ये जो है ना कॉन्फ्लिक्ट करता है हमारे उसके साथ. जो हमने रूल पढ़ा है वो रूल हमने पूरे periodic table के लिए एक्चुअली पढ़ा नहीं है. We have just studied the part of the rule as per our syllabus requirement. उससे ज्यादा हम आगे जाते नहीं है. उससे आगे एक्सप्लेनेशन है बट हम वो लेवल में आगे जा नहीं. Just for the sake of simplicity. Ramin beta, still you cannot hear me? Yes, Abdullah, I'll be telling you about zinc and silver because we expect all the transition metal to form different charges. However, zinc and silver, they form only one charge. There is silver and zinc. Zinc always forms a charge of 2 positive only, and silver always forms a charge of +1 only. I'll tell you this later.
Sir, what type of questions can come in exam about this topic, related to this topic?
About formula making, actually, they cannot ask you any question directly about formula making. Formula making is just the basics of chemistry. तो हम जो next chapter start करने जा रहे हैं ना उसके लिए we have to prepare the formula making. ठीक है, अभी atomic structure पढ़ा था उसके questions करे तो you got familiar क्या how do they ask the question about atomic structure. But now the second chapter that we have started, element mixture and compounds and chemical bonding, it's a very lengthy chapter. तो इसके जो questions हैं it will take us some time to go to the questions now. अभी तो हम बहुत सारे concept build up कर रहे हैं उसके बाद we will go to the past paper question.
Okay, sir.
Okay, and about radicals, we won't be studying about radicals in O levels. We will be studying about free radical, but उसको नाम नहीं देंगे. But in the very end, organic chemistry में जाके कहीं पे अगर मूड हुआ तो मैं बता दूंगा, लेकिन सिलेबस की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है. बहुत आगे जाके चलें, आगे बढ़ें या कोई और क्वेश्चन है?
No, sir.
Okay, moving on. So I was saying that all group 1 elements, they form a charge of 2 positive. All group 2 element, they loses 2 electrons to form a charge of 2 positive. All the elements between group 2 and group 3, which are known as transition metal, they can form variable charges. Similarly, let's talk about group 4. Group 4, they do the elements of group 4, they do not lose or gain electron. ना उसकी तो हम बात नहीं कर रहे. What about group 5 elements? Group 5 elements have 5 valence electrons. They need 3 more electrons to complete their octet. So they gain 3 electrons. And whenever any atom gains an electron, it gets a negative charge. Group 5 elements, they have to gain 3 electrons. So they will get a charge of 3 negative. Similarly, group 6 element, they gain 2 electrons and they get a charge of 2 negative. Group 7 elements, they gain 1 electron because they already have 7 valence electrons. They just need 1 more electron to complete their octet and they get a charge of -1. And group 8 element,
Sir, octet describe present.
octet is having 8 electrons in outermost shell. For example, if we talk about any group 5 element, let's say nitrogen. Nitrogen has an atomic number of 7. It means it has total of 7 electrons. If we make the electronic configuration of nitrogen atom, this would be 2,5. The last shell of nitrogen, which is the outermost shell or the valence shell, does not have 8 electrons. Any atom wants to have 8 electrons in its outermost shell to achieve stability, right? So nitrogen already has 5 electrons in its valence shell. In order to achieve stability, nitrogen gains 3 electrons. Octet करना है 8 electrons complete करने होते हैं. So it will gain 3 electron and it will have 8 electron in its outermost shell. So इसको हम octet कहते हैं. जैसे oct होता है ना, 8 octet, octagon, octopus, like this. Similarly, group 8 elements already have 8 electrons in their outermost shell. If we talk about neon, neon has an electronic configuration of 2,8 because it has 10 electrons. Group neon is already stable, so it does not have to lose or gain electron. So group 8 does not form a charge. Group 8 element does not form a charge. सही है? यहाँ तक बात क्लियर है? और हमने एटॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर में आयंस पढ़ते वक्त एक बात ये भी की थी group 5 में we have nitrogen, and when nitrogen atom forms an ion, its spelling changes. Nitrogen atom becomes a nitride ion. Remember? Similarly, phosphorus atom, when gains an electron, it forms, or it is called phosphide ion with a charge of 3 negative. बात याद है ना? Similarly, about group 6 element, oxygen atom, it gains 2 electrons and forms a charge of 2 negative, and then it will be called as oxide ion. And sulfur also gains 2 electrons to form a charge of 2 negative, and this would be called as sulfide ion.
Sir, why we are putting minus sign after 2?
Because that's the way we write it. So if you write like -2, or let's say talking about positive ions like magnesium +2. Actually, this is acceptable in exam. आपके marks तो नहीं काटेगा इस पे, but this is not the right way. ठीक है, right way is you write the number first and then the charge. Similarly, for anions, you write the number first and the charge. But हम जल्दी में जो है ना, हम लोग जो है चार्ज पहले लिख देते, नंबर बाद में लिख देते हैं. मार्क्स नहीं कटेंगे इसके कभी भी. लेकिन जो बुकिश मेथड है ना, it's writing the number first and then the sign, both for cation and anion.
सर वो असल में मैथ पढ़ते हैं ना तो उसकी आदत होती है जल्दी करने की, इसलिए ना हम लोग
मैथ्स की वजह से. राइट जी बेटा.
ये स्पेसिफिकली जो आपने नाइट्रेट को नाइट्राइड और ऑक्सीजन को ऑक्साइड का बताया, ये स्पेसिफिकली ग्रुप 5 और 6 का या बाकी ग्रुप्स के लिए भी?
ओनली फॉर एनाइंस फ्रॉम ग्रुप 5 टू ग्रुप 7. मैं लिखवा रहा हूँ, आपने कॉपी करना है. प्रोडक्ट टेबल आप ना एक काम ये करो, टेबल की ना कॉपी बना के अपने पास रख लो, हार्ड कॉपी में ना. देखो कैटाइन्स होते हैं ना, जैसे सोडियम आयन है, when sodium ion loses an electron it forms a positively charged ion, but this is known as sodium ion. उसकी स्पेलिंग ना चेंज नहीं होती है. however when any atom forms a negatively charged ion or anion, तो उसके जो स्पेलिंग है ना, उसकी नाम की स्पेलिंग चेंज हो जाती है. Just give me a moment, let me show you that. See all the elements from group 1 till group 3, they loses electron to form a positively charged ions or cations, right? जैसे सोडियम एटम जब आयन बनाएगा तो इट वुड बी कॉल्ड एज सोडियम आयन, नो चेंज इन द स्पेलिंग ऑफ सोडियम. Magnesium atom when forms an ion it is known as magnesium ion. Iron atom when forms an ion it is known as iron ion. There is no change in the spelling, but whenever an atom forms an anion, and which group element forms an anion from group 5 till group 7, they form negatively charged ion or anion. Okay, these elements they form an ion. तो थोड़ा सा आगे करके दिखाते हैं लाइक दिस. इसमें नाइट्रोजन एटम व्हेन फॉर्म्स एन आयन इट इज नोन एज नाइट्राइड आयन. फॉस्फोरस एटम व्हेन फॉर्म्स एन आयन इट इज नोन एज फॉस्फाइड आयन. अब ये तो बहुत सारे हैं, क्या हमें सारे याद करने? नहीं, हमें जो याद करने हैं ना वो मैं लिखवा देता हूँ आपको, पहले भी लिखवाए होंगे. आयंस पढ़ा था ना एटॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर में, चेक करो अपने लेक्चर्स.
Yes, sir.
Yes. When nitrogen atom it forms an ion, it gains, as it is from group 5, it has 5 valence electrons. It needs 3 more electrons. It gains 3 electrons and forms a charge of 3 negative. उसका नाम भी नाइट्रोजन नहीं होता. This is known as nitride ion. We put IDE in the end. Similarly, phosphorus atom also gains 3 electrons and then this would be called as phosphide ion. You just have to remember about nitride and phosphide. इसके नीचे वाला नहीं करना. Similarly, oxygen is from group 6. It gains 2 electron and gets a charge of 2 negative, and this would be called as oxide ion. Sulfur gains a charge of 2 negative, and this would be called as sulfide ion. इसमें group 6 में भी और कोई नीचे वाले नहीं करने. Fluorine gets a charge of
Sir, group 6 till 10 we have to put DE at the end.
IDE.
Yes, sir.
We are putting IDE in all. Group 5 में भी डाला है, group 6 में भी डाला है ना.
Okay, sir.
ठीक है, बट देयर इज नो सेट रूल के आखिर के कितने लेटर हटा के आईडीई लगाना है. इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ याद कर लो ना, कोई बहुत ज्यादा थोड़ी है. 2 from group 5, 2 from group 6 and 4 from group 7 अभी याद हो जाएंगे. Fluorine when gains 1 electron it forms fluoride ion. Chlorine when gains 1 electron it forms chloride ion. Bromine when gains electron it forms bromide ion. Iodine when gains 1 electron it forms iodide ion. That's it. ग्रुप 6 -2 चार्ज बनाते हैं, ग्रुप 7 -1 बनाते हैं. पहले भी लिखे थे हमने. These are ions, not radicals. Abdullah, radicals are something else. चले आगे बढ़े।
Yes, sir.
अच्छा, हम लोग क्या डिस्कस कर रहे थे एक्चुअली? फॉर्मूला मेकिंग ऑफ आयनिक कंपाउंड्स। See, we have one compound known as sodium chloride. And how do we make the formula of sodium chloride? See, sodium, it has two elements, sodium and chlorine. Chloride is from chlorine. So sodium has a symbol of Na, and sodium is from group 1. It means when sodium forms an ion, it gets a charge of +1. राइट, इसको हम +1 लिख रहे हैं बिकॉज अभी हमें मैथमेटिकली कुछ सॉल्व करना है। 1 पॉजिटिव इसलिए नहीं लिख रहा अभी। एंड क्लोराइड we know is from chlorine, right, which is from group 7 and it forms the charge of -1. So in order to make the formula of sodium chloride, what we have to do is, first step is, see the numbers with the charges of these two ions. सोडियम के साथ +1 है और क्लोरीन के साथ -1 है। हमें क्या करना है? we have to simplify these numbers. क्या मतलब है इस बात का? that we have one with sodium and one with chlorine. Can you further simplify 1 and 1? Can you divide 1 and 1 by any other number to make a further smaller numbers? 1 और 1 को डिवाइड करोगे भी तो 1 से ही कर सकते हो ना, क्योंकि 1 के टेबल में दोनों 1 1 आते हैं और तो कोई पॉसिबिलिटी है नहीं हमारे पास, राइट? सही है ना? It means we cannot further divide 1 and 1. So it is already in the simplest form. Then what you have to do is, sodium के साथ जो 1 लिखा हुआ है ना, you just drop the charges. The second step is drop the charges or leave the charges and take the number with the sodium 1 and bring it at the bottom of chlorine. जिसको हम कहते हैं सबस्क्रिप्ट में लेके आ जाना. Subscript, smaller number at the bottom. Similarly, the number written with the charge of the chlorine 1, you take it at the bottom of sodium. So with the symbol of sodium, we will write 1, and with the symbol of chlorine, we will also write 1. अच्छा, ये फॉर्मूला बन गया। अब इस फॉर्मूले में whenever you have to write a formula, if nothing is written, it means it is 1. By default, it is 1. तो आपको 1 ना कभी भी लिखने की जरूरत नहीं होती। So instead of writing 1, you can just write NaCl. It means there is 1 sodium and 1 chlorine. That's how you make the formula of sodium chloride. Just wait and let me give you another example. ऐसे समझ आएगा नहीं। Magnesium chloride. In order to make the formula of magnesium chloride, first you have to see the cation magnesium is from group 2. Is a symbol of Mg and it has a charge of 2 positive. Chloride is from chlorine, which is from group 7 and it has a charge of -1. Your first step is to simplify the values of the charges. Simplify or to take the common ratio between 2 and 1. In order to simplify 2 and 1, तो 2 और 1 किसके टेबल में एक साथ आ सकते हैं? You cannot further simplify 2 and 1. If you gonna divide 2 and 1 by 1, so this will stay 2 and 1. डिवाइड करने के बाद कोई वैल्यूज पे फर्क तो नहीं पड़ेगा ना। 2 with the magnesium will stay 2 and 1 with the chlorine will stay 1. The second step is to cross the numbers. And how do you cross the numbers? With magnesium, you have 2. You just drop the sign, forget about the sign, the plus sign, and takes 2 from magnesium to chlorine at the bottom of chlorine, and 1 with chlorine to magnesium at the bottom of magnesium. तो आपको क्या मिलेगा? With magnesium, you will write 1, and with chlorine, you will write 2. However, we do not write 1. If nothing is written, it means by
Sir,
default
like
it is
cross
1.
multiplication.
दोबारा कहो.
Sir, like cross multiplication.
This is not cross multiplication. Cross multiplication would be when we form an equation and put equals to in between. यहाँ तो 1 उठा के ना, 1 इसका उठा के इसके नीचे लिख दिया, ठीक है, और 2 मैग्नीशियम का उठा के क्लोरीन के नीचे लिख दिया. मल्टीप्लीकेशन तो तब होती है ना, तब जब आप 2 into 1 कर रहे होते हैं. We are not doing 2 into 1. This cross is not cross multiplication. I'm just showing you the direction of numbers going. Okay, by using this arrow, I'm just trying to show you the direction of numbers. The 1
Sir?
is going to the substitute of magnesium and 2 is going to the substitute of chlorine. जी बच्चे.
Sir, why we are not writing the negative value? Like there it's -1.
Actually, when we write the formula, we are just trying to give how many magnesium ions are combined with chloride ions. So the signs does not signify the quantity. We cannot say magnesium +1 ion combines with chlorine -1 ion. It does not signify the quantity. Quantity जब आप देते हो, you do not need to state the charges.
So in
Let me
every
give you
case,
another.
you have to ignore the charges, right?
Yes, you have to drop the charge.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, let's make the formula for magnesium oxide. You just have to follow the simple rules actually. No? So magnesium, as we know, is from group 2. It has a charge of 2 positive. Oxide is from oxygen, which is from group 6, and it has a charge of 2 negative. So now first step is to bring the values of these charges into the simplest form. Let's simplify it. And how would you simplify it? By dividing with the largest common number. अब largest common number का क्या मतलब है? देखो, charges की जो values है ना, it is this time with magnesium it's 2 and with oxygen it is also 2. तो ऐसा कौन सा नंबर है जिसके टेबल में 2 और 2 दोनों आते हैं? 1 के टेबल में भी आता है और 2 के टेबल में भी आता है. But we have to choose the largest number. Because अगर हम 2 से डिवाइड करेंगे तो these numbers will be simplified further. जैसे आप मैथ्स में सिंपलेस्ट रेशियो लेते हो ना, वैसे ही सिंपलेस्ट रेशियो लेना है. जैसे if I say we have 5 and 10, so how would you take the simplest ratio between 5 and 10? You will divide 5 and 10 by 5 and you will get the simplest ratio 1:2. Can you further simplify 1:2? नहीं, उससे नीचे और नहीं जा सकता. यहाँ पे भी आपको simplest ratio लेना है. If how can you further divide 2 and 2? By dividing both the numbers by 2, so you will get 1:1. जब आप दोनों को 2 से डिवाइड करोगे तो you will get Mg +1 and oxide -1. With magnesium, just drop the sign and take the number at the subscript of oxygen. This is not cross multiplication. ये मैं की direction बता रहा हूँ. And with oxygen, the charge है वो drop कर दो and then take the number with magnesium. So with magnesium you will get 1. With oxygen you will get 1. However, you are not supposed to write 1 by writing the formula. So you will just state the formula as MgO. Right?
Sir, लेकिन अगर
जी.
sir if you want values, तो फिर examiner marks तो कट नहीं करेगा ना?
If you write 1, ये कह रहे हो?
Yes sir.
If you want simplify the value, दोबारा पूछो question, समझ नहीं आया, आवाज नहीं आ रही.
सर मैं कह रहा हूँ जैसे आपने Mg1 लिखा और 01 लिखा, तो इसको simplify करके you write Mg0, MgO.
It's not 0, it's oxygen, beta, it's O.
Yes sir. Yes sir, I am giving it. Sir,
Can you
तो
repeat your
examiner marks
question?
तो कटेगा.
अभी भी I still couldn't hear you properly. Can you repeat your question one more time, please?
Sir, I am saying that sir आपने Mg1 लिखा है और फिर 01 लिखा है, ऑक्सीजन 1 लिखा है सर. ओ यस सर. तो सर आपने फिर उसके बाद लिखा है MgO, तो सर इसमें मार्क्स नहीं कटेंगे ना एग्जामिनर?
If you mention 1 and 1, नहीं मार्क्स तो नहीं कटेंगे, बट नहीं मार्क्स नहीं कटेंगे, बट ट्रस्ट मी, after studying chemistry for a while, you will never write Mg1O1. You will always write MgO. ठीक है? आप कभी ऐसा लिखोगे ही नहीं. Just the basics of formula making. Now you will be using this formula so many times, that you will be so used to of it by the end of the year. You will never write Mg1O1.
Sir,
जी बच्चे.
sir, can we be given like equations related stable elements?
Yes.
If it's possible, can you give one example?
Right now, I can give you one example, but thing is, we haven't studied it yet. Let me tell you that if we have magnesium and oxygen reacting together, it will form magnesium oxide. That's what you're asking? You want me to balance it as well?
No, I'm asking, can the examiner give us like to make equations like from this the elements which are stable, like
Of
in the
course.
last? Okay, thank you.
No. If you're asking about all elements from group 8,
Yes, I'm asking from that.
no, they do not react. Let's say if you are saying that if they give you the formula of xenon fluoride, xenon is a noble gas. So for you, xenon does not react. If it does not react, it cannot form an ion. If it cannot form an ion, it cannot form an ionic compound. If xenon does not have any charge, it means it cannot be attracted to fluoride.
Okay, thank you,
Got
sir.
it? They will be
Yes.
using either metals, they will be joining metals and non-metals. And metals may include any element from group 1 till group 3, and non-metals may include any element that can form an ion from group 5 till group 7. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay, chalo, we'll continue this topic in next class. Much is left in this for formula making. ना अभी बहुत कुछ पढ़ना है. So right now you may leave. About test, we will update you. I think Sir Hamda couldn't just integrate the app. So let's see क्या है मैं बताता हूँ आपको. You may